Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. I am Captain Foley.
And I am Quanah Cockins, and we are doing a part 2 of an iconic ship. Sort of. It's back. Sort of. But now we're going to compare. Sort of.
That's right. We're talking about the D7, the Discovery D7, but not the D7 we got in Season 1, but the D7 that's actually a D7 that was done
Properly.
for Season 2, because they listened to people complain, and the people like us complain.
Well, constructive notes on mistakes they did.
So today, we're going to be taking a look at the new D7 done by Ryan Denning and compare it to the original D7 done by Matt Jeffries back for the original TOS series back in '66.
Now, obviously, disclaimer here. The original D7 was a miniature. The original Katinga was a miniature. We haven't got the miniatures, and orthographics of a miniature are quite difficult. So we are using all 3D here. Now, the Star Trek Online model we're using for D7 is licensed based on their orthos, so it's proportionally accurate, even if details maybe a few less good. The D7 we're using is the Eaglemoss D7 enhanced by Rob Bonshoon, so it's licensed for them and they approve it. And the Katinga we're using is also customized by Rob Bonshoon, the VFX supervisor of one of the VFX supervisors of both Enterprise and Voyager, worked on Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica and such. Great guy. He worked with us to create a truly screen-accurate D7 a while ago. Katinga from the first movie. So it's very accurate, very tweaked, lots of greeblies. So that's as close as you can get. So that's what we're using here. So disclaimers to those, but they should be, for the most part, correct. At least you can see the big differences. But second picture though, Stuart, just for the shameless plug, designer himself, Mr. Ryan Dennings. And
two other handsome people. Which, ironically, the JJ, this Klingon warbird, which isn't a warbird, is beside your head in that picture.
Also a good design. Also one of the better designs of that franchise.
But meeting him was awesome. I love his name tag. It says, I designed ships for Discovery. Because nobody knew who he was. I thought it was great. He was a great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, unsung hero sort of thing. Some great stuff in Season 2. And designed what I think is the best design in Discovery, the D7. But the first picture, the next picture, though, is the... Because we're going to start with a kind of... Where does it sit in the canonical scales? Percentage, proportion. She's big. She's been upscaled hugely, just like the entire Discovery subgenre of designs.
And I think it's safe to say, even though it's also upscaled, each section is proportionally a little bit larger as well. Even if it was downscaled to the same size, there'd be a little bit different size and shape-wise. The secondary hull for sure, the boom for sure is longer. The nacelles are of course longer, but the head of it might be... It's just more squared off in the new version. It's not as rounded in a lot of places.
Yeah, I refused, as you can imagine, to do the next set of comparison renders to scale. It would be pointless. So you're right. I've done some things with that that was really easy to look at. But I just want to show the scale first to put into perspective. No, this is another upscaled thing that we have to retcon the scale out of continuity. The D7 was never this big and got smaller. That's silly. But the rear view, or the side view, sorry, similar thing. Weird. But Stuart, then, here is the D7 model with the D7 model. I've scaled the bridge bubble. That's what I've scaled this to.
Oh, wow. Okay. The proportion changes, and yet the holding true to what it should look like decisions. It's a perfect example of how to redo something properly, in my opinion. There are differences, there are changes, but they're at first glance, when they're not side by side, you would go, "Hey, that's a D7," because you don't have the comparison. But we love to take them and compare them and show you exactly what's different on each, because you might not know ever just by watching the show.
That's why you come here.
That's one of the things that Trekyards we like to pride ourselves in showing you these differences and actually all the thought and design process that went into these things. So
it's where the Discovery Enterprise, again, people say, it looks the same. It's like, it does, and then you break it down. Every single piece of it is different. Not a single angle is the same. This is actually the same thing. Look at the back module. it's less long. It's got less of a lead in. The angle's different. Everything is different, but it does maintain that feel. And I was surprised actually how stretched it was, because now it looks honestly out of proportion. I think the top view, it looks weirdly stretched. It has a kind of elegance to it, but it's such a departure from the more stout and stocky Klingon aesthetic. It's just long and it's thin and it's a weird. When you see it like this, it's like, oh, this is really stretched it.
Yeah, like it reminds me a lot of the Klingon ships we saw in FASA games. Just slight changes to certain designs. Like this could be the D7A or whatever. That didn't exist, but FASA had some interesting designs, especially that head of the ship, the way it's squared off and not as rounded, is very reminiscent of a lot of the FASA ships. So I don't know if that was an inspiration for Ryan. I would love to actually hear from him about that. Hopefully he watches this and enjoys it.
Mm-hmm. But the next video is a Katinga comparison, because you might think them as the same, but they are actually quite different. And again, scaled to the bridge bubble, or it's the front bobble. And this is, Rob Washington's very proud of this model. And already you can see one of the differences if you scroll back for 1 second, that the boom, the forward module, is more of like a Thor's hammer sort of vibe on the D7, and actually very similar. So now, it takes away the credit from Ryan of designing that, because it's like, oh no, the Katinga kind of did it first. Oops.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the first thing I was going to point out about that, but thank you.
There you go. What do you think now, though? Because obviously this is trying to be more of a D7, a Katinga. There's a few things certainly that scream out to me.
Well, yeah, the ridges are the backbone of the boom. There's a few visual tie-ins there, especially the front of the Denning D7, the Denning 7, we should call it. Anyway, and of course the plating, plating on the secondary hull is the most obvious thing. But yeah, that the shapes of that head section being more straight and lined up, definitely influenced there from that. So
I'm amazed that what he did with the detailing, the hull geometry on the secondary hull is just reverse it. So what is extruding is now not. Yeah. That's what it is. I mean, it does change the feel, because it's the opposite angles, and that's really weird. But boy, that's close. Because why reinvent the wheel? I mean, you've got these well thought out. I mean, there's some differences. I kind of like the way he's split off the back pieces, but I mean, you've got this template of a extremely well made feature film level miniature that you're also meant to feel like. So why would you reinvent said wheel? And it gives it real authenticity. Yeah?
Another thing I didn't notice before from the top on the Denning 7, I like that, is the nacelles at the midpoint, they dip in. So it's not a straight line. I never noticed that before until here. But yeah, if you guys haven't watched part 1 of our look at this ship, go back and check it out, because there's quite a few points we make in that one as well, which we probably won't reiterate here. But definitely check it out. So
yeah, we cover it just as a unique look at the design itself. Yeah, I like how in the behind the bridge module, he's used the idea of the greebling there, but kind of moved it around a bit, made it symmetrical, which obviously helps modelers. But he's kept it roughly the same, but yeah. I like the simple version of the plating on the top of the head rather than all the sort of abstract weird plating. It kind of reinforces the shape rather than,
There, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think the Katinga's a lot better. I like the asymmetrical look of the greeblies on the back.
That is cool, though, yeah. What do you think of the actual angles of the secondary hull? Because it is being stretched like this and thinner and pointier and compared to the Katinga.
Well, it goes back to what I said about the FASA stuff. That was a lot of the changes that were made just to FASA designs.
So it's a lot less out of the box to your head than it is to mine.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like change for the sake of change. And I know if there was a 25% rule or whatever, which you know the situation on that, but it's a subtle thing that I don't mind, because like we said earlier, at first glance, seeing this fly by on screen, you're gonna, that's a D7. You don't realize that there's actually differences. I do prefer the stouter look of the Katingas. They just look beefier and a little bit meaner from the top, but I have no issues with the way he's changed the shapes at all. It's a good reimagining of what was.
While it feels in line with its own design, it fit the bulky strongman vibe of the Katinga versus his D7 gives it more of a like, it feels stronger to me. The other one feels more like elongated and whatever. But let's go to the side view, because the side view is weird. And as I said last episode, that no, there isn't a Photoshop error. The top of the bridge dome is flat.
Yes. That's the dumbest decision ever. No offense, Ryan, if you're watching, but it should be like, if not rounded, at least go like this, and then put some greeblies on it or some kind of a step look.
Obviously, the disclaimer is this is the Starting Online model, not the high-res hero mesh.
I prefer the original look as far as that goes, anyway.
I like how the head is connected to the neck. I think having it fully integrated looks better.
Looks a lot stronger for sure.
Yeah, although it shouldn't be that long. Remove about a bit of it, you know?
Yeah. But speaking from experience, I have the Franklin Mint D7 made of pewter, and the front section broke off right where the boom attaches because it's such a weak spot. So I've glued it back on, and it's not a good design. The new one is a much sturdier design, and I think that's maybe why they extended the neck a little bit. Again, nobody will notice, and because it's not kind of going down to a more fine point, it's easier to extend it, make the ship look a little bit longer and bigger, and at the same time maintain that strong looking attachment point.
But speaking of maintaining or not, in a previous video you said that you thought the ball looked more squished. I mean, obviously these are both, what they are, but I mean, it doesn't feel as squished as I thought it did from the front. What do you think now you're seeing them side by side?
I still like the look of the original one better, just because it is more rounded. It does feel more rounded. The other time when we talked about it in part 1, it was more from the front. I don't know if you have any views like that in this one, but
yes, later.
I'm interested to see how that looks, but you can tell it's smaller. Obviously, it's not as bulky at the bottom. I do like the refined shape of the original D7 though. It's not quite a ball. It kind of stretches back a little bit, and I think that's a very beautiful design. The new one just seems too almost video game like something out of Klingon Academy.
Yeah, everything is different, even though everything is sort of the same. Like I'm trying, you could pinpoint. It feels like those YouTube videos where they do a red circle on something, saying, "Have you spotted this?" If you try a red circle on every difference, the entire thing would be like a billion red circles. It's kind of hard to know what to talk about because there is so many things. So let's just go into the Katinga, because there are slight differences within differences. And this one does feel like it matches more instantly.
Yeah, it looks like he took the head design inspiration from the Katinga for sure, and maybe the rest of the ship more from the D7. But
yeah, the head's much more similar, isn't it? Actually, in vibe.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, some people, and I've seen this all the time on Trekyards, argue that the Katinga is just an upgraded D7, like the refitters, or it was always meant to be the Katinga. We should ignore the D7. It's like, no, 2 classes.
The D7 is a little bit bigger too than the Katinga. But yeah, there's I think a lot more design influence here on the head from the Katinga. For sure. The new one seems more stretched out and kind of squished this way. It just seems like a little bit oddly proportioned. But again, you'll never notice it on screen.
Yeah, I mean, because the Katinga especially is so perfectly proportioned. I mean, it's hard to really go anywhere from there, and they've just gone different, and different isn't better. It's not bad, but it isn't that same crisp, clean effectiveness.
And this is one of those shapes, whether it be D7 Katinga or the new one, where this ship in 3D has much more dimensionality. Once you change the angle a little bit, go to 3/4, all these things that we're noticing get hidden instantly. You never see the ship directly from the side. You might see it on screen coming at you directly from the front the odd time, but when you put this ship in a more dynamic environment, it comes to life because of the shapes that are involved. So, speaking
of one last shape, or two last, I prefer how the shuttle bay arrangement looks on the new one, with the more distinct, as if it's being held up on stilts. I kind of like that separation more on the new one, and I like the way there's good as coming off the bridge module onto the back of the head, because that's on my D7. So I already had that idea, and I've already used well before this came out. So I agree, Ryan. I did that too. Well, that'd be fun actually to do a comparison between my D7 and this D7, new one. See, two versions of a 2019 D7, what we each did differently in the same.
We should get Ryan on the line sometime, talk to him, and do yours versus his, and both of your design influences and how you came about. Because I thought that'd be an interesting discussion for sure.
Yeah, it's not often you've designed a full D7.
Yeah.
And a special guest texture by Rob Bonshun, who ordered these two D7s. Thank you, Rob. Love Rob. Next view, though, is the front. And again,
well, the Star Trek Online model doesn't have any kind of depth or shading or shadowing or dimensionality to it. It just seems like a drawing.
The lighting was not lit on this one. They obviously turned off shadows, and it does not do it any favors.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, there's a little bit more bulkiness at the bottom of the brim of the hat, as they call it, on the new one. I assume, unless that's on the secondary hull. It's hard to say. Anyway, but you're right. The ball module looks very similar on both. It's more, I think it's more rounded on the D7, and it's squished a little bit just to make it not round, but more like oblong on the newer one, which is a subtle thing, but it really stands out to me.
But I think it's subtler than you thought. Week.
It's much subtler than I thought. Absolutely, yeah.
And I think also having a much more flat bottom, that changes the mental, because if you suddenly, if you see a ball, there you go. But if you have either side be flat, you think of it as being squished. It might not be squished as much as it is, but if you're cutting off those dimensions, and I like the torpedo tube. Good job. It's for just class torpedo tube, and the engines. I like the fact it's 3 colors. This kind of works well here. But let's go to Katinga though, because there's more bulk to the secondary hull, which it does feel closer. Although also in my D7, I also did have a bigger secondary hull bit. So again, we had a similar thing there. And in this version, the ball is much different. And in fact, the whole thing feels quite a lot different. And these aren't scaled. These are scaled just to be in line with each other in terms of where they are in the frame. So they're not scaled to each individual piece of the ship. They're just to where each other stop. So that could change the feel, but it's all I could really do.
Yeah, it's interesting, the subtle angle changes even on the struts going down the nacelles. Sure, the nacelles still angle in, but those parts that attach them go up a little bit more in the new one. Subtle little things that you don't notice until they're side by side. And I gotta say, the top of that bridge module being cut off looks stupid. There should have been something up there. Ryan, what are you doing?
But next view, though, is the back of the D7. And as we know, the D7 3D model used, because there was nothing back there in the Matt Jeffries, and you don't think anyone necessarily saw it, per se, like properly anyway.
Well, in Remastered you do. In
the Remastered, though, they altered the back design 3, 4, 5 times. This is one version. So
okay,
that's, take that with all the salt you want. But yeah, I mean, as we said, this looks just like a Katinga, and therefore probably just cut to the Katinga. And you can see,
pretty much. Wow, didn't realize it was the same as a Katinga. One thing I do notice though is that the front section of the ship is noticeable from the back of the D7, but you can't see that the front ball module, unless is that the ball module on the secondary hull, or is that the front of the ship?
It's the front of the ship.
Okay. Yeah, because it doesn't show up on the new ship.
Doesn't? Okay. Yeah.
So it changes the look from the back quite a bit.
This is a good view. Well done them. I mean, they stuck with it and changed it a bit, but it's good. It's good. Next view though, from the bottom, again very faithful here. Although as you can see, they've done the single color Klingon symbol.
Yeah, this is where. Okay, I see something now. This is where he got the inspiration for that shape on the back of the secondary or the boom. Is from the bottom lower side of the Katinga or the D7, because it looked familiar to me, but you don't see it from the top, that lower part, and that shape is kind of just elongated on his.
I didn't notice that the head, the sharper elements are slightly further in, so it gives both a distinct perspective, whereas in the Katinga it all stops at the same line. It's all integrated. That's a difference I hadn't even considered. God, the subtleties, Stuart, the subtleties. But go to the next picture, the last picture, is just, again, the idea of legacy and just going to compare the new fleet canon and the classic fleet canon, as we've now compared both the D7 and the D7 and the Katinga a la motion picture, because they also tweaked it for other things too.
Yes.
Closing thoughts, Stuart, on this unique look, and we hope you guys have enjoyed.
Got to give Ryan Denon 2 thumbs up. He did a fantastic job, and it was great for them to actually listen to the fans and fall in line and actually have a D7 looking like a D7 on screen. So thank you to whoever listened to us. We appreciate it. All the fans out there would say the same. And I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more of it, to be honest. And having Ryan on the show sometime to talk about it, I think would be great, because he was a great guy to meet. So,
and it's nice because we can have, like we did like Rick Sternbach with Prometheus, we're able to look at the 3D model, have very unique questions based on the design that, so Ryan, why did you make the head not be lined up? And I'm like, oh, well, or didn't know did that. I was like, aha, we found, a fun look at a piece of new Trek history, and I'm genuinely excited to have an Eagles version. It's been confirmed. I think it's coming in the next 4 or 5. Have that in the collection. Yeah, no, like we said with the JJ one, that is one of the best designs of that sub universe, and this is one of the best of the Discovery sub art style. But if you want to support us the free way, because Stuart's the paid way, you can like, subscribe, click the bell notification is really, really important. Share if you like things, bobs, and whatever we do, and join our lives and share our lives. We'll do them too. But that's a free way, Stuart.
And also, don't forget to comment. Let us know what you think of this new design and what you think of Ryan's work. And if you want to help us financially, you can do so. There's links down below to Patreon, which is our monthly subscription service. Very important to keep the show going. And some cool perks there now. So go check it out and maybe up your tier if you're at the $1 level. You want to go to the $5 level. That'll be totally beneficial to both you and us, and we hope to see you guys there. Also, you can donate via PayPal or head on over to Trekyards.com and click the donate button. And don't forget about all the other cool stuff. There's Trekyards merch, guys. If you love Trekyards, and you should because you're here, check out some of our shirts from Teespring. The link is down below, as is Eagle Moss. Once the ship comes out in Eagle Moss, if you're watching this after the fact, after it's released, click the link down below to take you to the Eagle Moss site, and then use our discount code Trekyards to save yourself some money. That's the best way to do it, and you can save yourself some money, help us out in the process. It's good for everybody. So there you go. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.